right? Let's talk about something that's been quietly bubbling under the surface of Celtic's European journey this season, the coefficient situation. Now, I get it. This isn't the sexiest topic in football, but trust me, what we're about to get into has massive implications for Celtic's future in European competitions. We're not just talking about qualifying rounds and prize money. We're talking about the very structure of our path back to the top table of European football. So, let's rewind a bit. Over the past few years, Scotland as a footballing nation has had a bit of a roller coaster ride in the UEFA coefficient rankings. From around 2020 to 2024, Scottish clubs were doing well enough to consistently place the country between 9th and 11th in the overall table. That was massive. Why? Because it meant that whoever won the Scottish Premiership got an automatic pass into the group stage of the Champions League. No qualifiers. No banana skins. Just straight into Europe's elite competition. And Celtic were able to benefit from that run, enjoying 3 consecutive seasons of direct Champions League football. Those were genuinely the glory days, no doubt about it. But here's the thing. Success in football can be fleeting. And while we were enjoying our time at the top, other countries were catching up. Or, in some cases, overtaking us. Despite last season actually being a decent European campaign for Scottish clubs overall, with Celtic doing all right in the Champions League and Rangers holding their own in the Europa League, it still wasn't enough to hold on to our spot. Why? Because the teams around us in the rankings just did even better. So, despite a strong year, Scotland fell to 14th place in the UEFA coefficient rankings by the end of last season. Now here's where it gets a bit technical, but stay with me. The coefficient system works with a bit of a delay. So even though we dropped to 14th last season, that change won't actually affect us until next season. Which means for the current campaign, we're still operating under the benefits of being ranked 11th. That's the place we earned in the previous cycle. So, for Celtic, if we win the league this season, we'll only need to go through 1 round of Champions League qualifiers to get into the group stage. Not ideal, but manageable, right? Well, here's the worrying part. If the current trend continues, and let's be honest, the start Scottish clubs have had in Europe this season hasn't been anything to write home about. We're looking at dropping even further. As it stands right now, in the live coefficient rankings, Scotland sits in 18th. That is a serious fall from grace. And if we finish this European season still down in 18th, it completely changes the game. The league winner would need to go through 3 qualifying rounds just to make it into the Champions League. That's not just a tougher route, that's a nightmare. The odds start stacking against you big time with each additional round. You're talking about going back to those mid-2010s days when we'd be facing 4 qualifiers just to get a sniff of the group stages. And that's assuming we even win the league. If Celtic were to slip to 2nd, or if another Scottish team takes the top spot and we finish runners-up, we're not just facing extra qualifiers. We could be shut out of the Champions League altogether. In that 18th place scenario, Scotland would only get 1 spot in the Champions League qualifiers, and the 2nd place team would be dropped into the Europa League at best, or even the Conference League. So yeah, things could get grim quickly. But here's the thing. There's a little-known rule that could actually work in Celtic's favor, and it's tied to UEFA's system of redistributing spots when the Champions League winner has already qualified through their domestic league. Say, for example, a club like Paris Saint-Germain wins the Champions League again, but also qualifies through League One. That frees up a spot in the group stage. Now, instead of handing that to a team from a top 5 league, UEFA gives that spare place to the team with the highest coefficient in the Champions qualifying path, even if that team is from a smaller league. That's how Olympiakos, a team from Greece, ended up parachuted straight into the Champions League phase this year. Their coefficient was strong enough to earn them that boost, and they skipped the qualifiers entirely. Imagine that happening to Celtic. Right now, Celtic's coefficient sits at around 36. Olympiakos, just to compare, are sitting on a massive 53.5. That's the kind of number we need to aim for. Because if we can keep racking up points in Europe, even in the Europa League or Conference League, we can get to that level. And once you're there, you're in the conversation for that parachute spot if a similar scenario plays out again. But we're not there yet, and we won't get there unless we treat every European match like it matters. Because it does. Now, let's zoom in a little and talk about Celtic's individual coefficient situation. At the time of this recording, we're ranked 58th in Europe. That's not where a club of our size and stature should be. We're sitting between Karabag and Ferencváros. Respect to those clubs, but Celtic should be aiming higher. The encouraging part, though, is that our coefficient number is about to naturally improve. That's because in UEFA's system, points earned 5 years ago drop off the calculation. And in our case, some of those older seasons weren't particularly strong, so we're shedding dead weight, so to speak. In fact, of our total of 36 points, 16 of them came from last season alone. That's almost half. And those were earned through a combination of wins, draws, and bonus points based on our finish in the Champions League table. Just to break it down, we had 3 wins last year in the group stage, and each win earns 2 points, so that's 6. Then we had 3 draws, 1 point each, that's another 3. Then UEFA gave us 7 bonus points for finishing 21st overall in the Champions League rankings. That all added up to 16, which was a really solid haul. So it shows you, when we actually perform in Europe, the points follow. Now, this season, we're in the Europa League. Not ideal from a financial point of view, but there's a silver lining. Wins and draws in the Europa League earn the same amount of coefficient points as they do in the Champions League, 2 for a win, 1 for a draw. The big difference is in the bonus points. UEFA gives out far fewer bonus points in the Europa League compared to the Champions League. So even if we top the Europa League table this season, we wouldn't get as many bonus points as we did last year for finishing 21st in the Champions League. That's just how the system is set up. But still, let's say we manage to put together a few good results. Maybe win 3 matches, draw 2. That's potentially 9 coefficient points just from match results. Add in whatever bonus points we can scrape from our final ranking in the Europa League, and we might be able to get to 11 or 12. That would be a very respectable return, and more importantly, it would help raise our overall standing, which, as we've just discussed, could be absolutely crucial down the line. And this is where the strategy comes in. See, some of the clubs ranked around us, or even higher than us, have earned the bulk of their points outside of the Champions League. Take Olympiacos again. Last season, they finished 7th in the Europa League rankings, not the Champions League, and earned a massive chunk of their total that way. The year before that, they actually won the Conference League. So even though they weren't rubbing shoulders with Real Madrid or Bayern Munich, they were picking up consistent wins, deep runs, and accumulating valuable coefficient points. It's a model we should be looking at seriously. So yeah, while being in the Europa League this year might feel like a bit of a step down, especially when you remember nights like facing Borussia Dortmund or Real Madrid, it's far from meaningless. If we play our cards right, it can be the launchpad for Celtic to establish a much stronger European presence in the seasons to come. Right, so we've talked about the UEFA coefficient and how important it is for Celtic's long-term European ambitions, but let's now get into the part that really moves the needle for most fans, and, to be fair, for the club as well, the financial side of European football. Because whether we like it or not, modern football runs on money. And the difference in income between playing in the Champions League and the Europa League is night and day. Let's start with last season. Celtic managed to rake in somewhere around £37 million just from the Champions League alone. That includes the participation fee, prize money from our results, the bonus for where we finished in UEFA's big ranking table, a slice of the value pillar, and of course a bit extra from reaching the playoff round. And that's before you even consider ticket sales. So yeah, no huge shocker there. The Champions League is where the serious money is. It's not just about prestige, it's about financial muscle. That kind of money allows a club like Celtic to reinvest, to improve the squad, to hold on to top talent, and to stay competitive both domestically and in Europe. Compare that with what's on offer in the Europa League, and you start to realize just how much of a drop-off it really is. For just getting into the group stage, the Champions League pays you a whopping €18.6 million straight up. The Europa League? For €0.3 million. That's not even a quarter. For a club like Celtic that's trying to punch above its weight in Europe and maintain a high standard in Scotland, that difference is massive. It influences transfer strategy, wage structures, infrastructure, the lot. And the gap doesn't stop there. Each win in the Champions League is worth €2.1 million. In the Europa League, a win brings in just €450,000. A draw in the Champions League gets you €700,000, whereas a Europa League draw earns you just €150,000. Again, we're talking about huge differences. Now obviously, The matches in the Champions League are tougher, no doubt. But when you're getting 5 times the reward for the same result, you can see why clubs are desperate to stay in that competition. UEFA also hands out performance bonuses depending on where you finish in the overall group stage ranking. If you finish first in the Champions League table, you get close to 10 million euros. Do the same in the Europa League, and it's just over 2.5 million. Finish dead last in the Champions League, you still walk away with 275,000. In the Europa League, you're lucky to clear 75 grand. And these are just UEFA's base numbers, not even factoring in extra bonuses tied to national TV markets, sponsorship bonuses, and so on. There's also this thing called the value pillar, which is UEFA's way of distributing money based on the television markets that clubs represent. Now, it's a complicated system, and this year it's even more confusing because for the first time in a long while, Celtic and Rangers are in the same competition, the Europa League. That means they're both drawing from the same pot, and what one club earns from the value pillar can directly impact what the other takes home. It's all a bit of a puzzle, and honestly, it's the kind of thing that makes your head spin. But the bottom line is clear. Even in the Europa League, there's money to be made, just not nearly as much. Take Rangers, for example. Last season, they made something like £15 million just from their Europa League group stage campaign. And they probably added more to that during the knockouts. That kind of income is still significantly more than anything you could expect from just playing in the Scottish Premiership. So when people say the Europa League doesn't matter or that it's second-rate, they're not looking at the bigger picture. It's still an opportunity, both financially and in terms of growing the club's European presence. But here's where it really gets interesting. If Celtic can put together a decent Europa League campaign this season, let's say we get 3 wins and a couple of draws, that's a handful of coefficient points right there. Add in a decent finish in the group, and maybe even progress to the knockouts. And we're looking at a serious bump in both our ranking and our bank account. That's the kind of result that can keep us seated in Champions League qualifying rounds in future seasons, which, again, makes qualification that much easier and brings us closer to those big paydays. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. The whispers coming out of Lennoxtown this week are growing louder, and they paint a stormy picture inside Celtic Park. Brendan Rodgers, never shy of a blunt word, has reportedly drawn a hard line with Kyogo Furuhashi, the Japanese forward who until recently was seen as untouchable in the starting 11. Sources close to the squad say Rodgers' patience has snapped, with one explosive phrase echoing through the corridors. "He doesn't play for me again." The tension, it seems, has been simmering for weeks. Rodgers is known for his demand of discipline both on and off the pitch, and Furuhashi's recent body language during matches and training sessions has not gone unnoticed. Supporters who saw him subbed early in the last fixture will remember the sharp handshake and the colder-than-usual exchange with the manager. What at first looked like a routine tactical switch may now be the sign of a deeper fracture. Behind the scenes, some players are said to be caught in the middle, trying to keep the atmosphere light while the relationship between gaffer and striker hangs by a thread. Furuhashi, adored by fans for his tireless running and knack for scoring in big games, suddenly finds himself at risk of being frozen out. For a squad that has leaned heavily on his goals, the possibility of him sitting in the stands is causing unease. Rodgers, of course, has weathered storms before. His message is often direct, sometimes brutal, but always calculated. Whether this latest clash is a short-term wake-up call or the beginning of a permanent rift is the question on everyone's lips. Supporters in pubs across Glasgow are already debating if this is posturing ahead of the January window, a genuine disciplinary stand, or simply a manager flexing authority in a dressing room that needs reminding who's in charge. For now, the only certainty is uncertainty. Rodgers has drawn a line in the sand, and Furuhashi's Celtic future suddenly feels clouded. The Parkhead faithful, who once sang his name without hesitation, may soon be wondering if their hero's last goal in green and white has already been scored. The rumor mill is grinding at full speed, and until the next team sheet is posted, the air around Celtic Park will remain thick with speculation. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, Share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.